Hello and welcome to this special show on ET Now. We are in conversation with the top brass of Nasscom to really understand the state of the industry, the future of jobs, where we stand and where we will be in a new normal era. Thank you so much, all three of you, for joining us. I'm going to start with Mr. Chandrasekhar, the Nasscom president. The number that everyone, at least the media, was waiting for, the industry guidance number is still out. And, you know, you said that some of those factors that you saw in February have stabilized, but some of those triggers still stay, sir, in terms of, you know, the world being more insular, macroeconomic uncertainty. Those triggers still continue. So tell us the tailwinds that you're seeing at this point.
See, I think while the headwinds are very clearly known and visible in terms of the political and the economic trends, look at the tailwinds are that the permeation of technology is not only continuing its march, but is actually accelerating in its pace. And this is fairly secular in the sense that it is happening across geographies, it is happening across sectors, and the pace continues unabated and in fact is accelerating. The one thing that we do see, we had come out with a report of Nasscom Perspective 2025 along with McKinsey about a couple of years ago, and at that time some people did have the question whether this future is really going to happen at that pace. And we do realize now that probably it is happening even faster than we had anticipated, not slower. So contrary to those impressions, it is rising in terms of the pace.
Right.
Now, for the industry, which is actually in the business of providing the services that are required to drive this transformation, therefore, the demand side has never looked better. And that is what also all the analysts report, whether they look at Forrester or Gartner, also say. And if you look at their 2018, it is almost twice the growth rate of 2017, which means that once these slightly choppy waters which we have passed through with, the US election and Brexit and global turbulence in the economy and all that, then the demand scenario is looking pretty bright. Right. Now, the question is, fine, global demand is fine, but what makes you think you are going to get it? That's the other question. And again, from that point of view, the Indian industry's share has not declined. In fact, it is increasing even higher from the 56 to 57% which it was of global outsourcing. That is continuing to rise a little because we are already at a fairly large level. And therefore, we are quite confident that that opportunity will bring in its wake much more growth opportunity for the industry. Of course, it comes with a lot of challenges in terms of a very different kind of skill sets from what was there in the past, a need to be able to acquire new skill sets at a rapid pace and continue to do so on a continuous basis. It's not a one-off exercise anymore. Right. So I think these are really the reasons why we feel much more confident about the future. Right. And why some of those uncertainties, I think, have now been put into an appropriate compartment. And that's the normal which we will have to deal with as we go forward.
Right. Raman, one significant, driver that Nasscom has said in its release today is digital. But if you look at the contracts or the deals under digital, they are much smaller compared to your traditional services. So is it really enough to make up for the gap that we are seeing in traditional services in terms of volume, value?
As against our traditional reliance on, say, the top 1,000 companies, what we also released today is a number that says that the number of $1 million customers as a percentage of our revenue is going down. That means we have a larger base of customers that are contributing to this 7 to 8% growth that there is. Yeah, digital is a different animal because it requires different kind of skill sets, it requires different capabilities, it requires analytics, it has a component of a do loop to say if this happens, what are we going to do? And in bringing that skill set, the project by project revenue may be not as high as it was in our previous things, but the repeated projects will be much higher. And the fact that we are going from 4 to 5% of our total revenues to 14 to 15% of our total revenues in digital is a demonstration of that impact, to show that there are A, capabilities, B, there is a need by our customer of those capabilities, and C, we, the Indian industry, is a partner of that capability. The very fundamental change that is happening is we are moving from a vendor to a partner, because we are all in the digital world. It is the world of the unknown, even to our customers and even to us. And there is a lot of thought that goes into it. There is a lot of experimentation that goes into it. There is a lot of domain knowledge that goes into it. And today our customers are becoming more and more reliant on us. Yeah, the per project cost may be lower, but the repetition is higher.
Right. Rishad, one other divergent trend that, we've observed in the last year or two is, yes, the opportunity is huge, the demand is huge, but, the likes of an Accenture have been able to capitalize on that much better than Indian IT companies. Maybe it's because of their consulting DNA or the number of acquisitions they've done in the digital space. So do you think Indian IT has been slightly behind the curve in, spotting these opportunities? I mean, now in the last couple of years, everybody's talking about SMAC and, digital. But do you think, they've lost out to the likes of Accenture in the last couple of years?
Look, I think the opportunity base is huge, and we're still very much in the infancy of what's happening with the digital space. So the opportunity for companies to get it right and to create disruptive opportunities for themselves and for the overall industry to grow is such a big number that today we're still very much at its infancy. So I think all organizations, be it Accenture, which is also a part of Nasscom, and others which are Indian-based companies, are going to focus on it, and they're going to focus on it organically, they're going to focus on it inorganically. We've talked about skilling a lot, and skilling is going to be a core component of being prepared to take advantage of that digital opportunity. But I think the runway is very long and the opportunities are immense. So there's enough for everybody.
And in terms of the challenges that a lot of players in the industry have spoken about in the traditional business, do you think they can, continue to look at businesses of tomorrow without dropping the ball on traditional services? Is that possible in the current environment?
So again, I don't think it's a this or that scenario. I think there's still a lot of runway in the traditional business. The shape and form of that may be changing. The expectations that the customers themselves have in terms of what they want to squeeze out in terms of costs from there to create budgets to spend on the digital side, I think is becoming more and more real. But customers are spending on the discretionary side, and they will continue to have to spend on the traditional run side as well. So I'm very hopeful that there's a lot of runway on the traditional business as well. And while we talk about the euphoria around digital, the traditional business is still going to be a large source of cash and revenue for organizations for the foreseeable future.
Right. So also, you've given a bold projection when it comes to hiring. You said the industry will continue to be a net hirer. But are we going to see this getting skewed in favor of captives, GICs, or, MNCs looking to expand in India? Where do Indian IT services players really stand?
See, it's we don't actually give a breakdown of where exactly and from which segment this growth will come. But the fact of the matter is that what our research team does is put together feedback received from all the different segments of companies that constitute Nasscom's member companies. You have on the one side the Indian large service providers, you have multinational companies, you have the GICs, you have engineering companies, you have product companies, you have BPM companies, you have IT services companies. So what you see, the number that we put out is really an aggregate and an amalgam of all of these. And each of them are working in different sectors. Some of the sectors are seeing an upturn, the domains. So for example, we've seen that in the BFSI there has been a lot of softness in recent times. But we've also seen that in areas like healthcare and some of the other areas like even retail, there has been a fairly robust kind of growth as well. So it's not easy to actually try and disaggregate this into, okay, how much is from this segment or that segment. But there is no doubt that the GICs is one of the most rapidly growing segments. We've seen the advent of more than 30 GICs in the last 1 year. In the last quarter of the last year itself, we saw more than 15 coming in. which is testimony to the fact that India holds great attraction for investment by companies globally which are looking to set up facilities. Now, whether the company chooses to meet its IT and technology needs internally by insourcing, offshoring, or by offshoring, outsourcing, or by some other permutations and combinations is a matter of a company's strategy. Different companies, depending on the work that the domain that they deal with, and how much they regard as core to themselves, which they want to keep, and how much they want to acquire in the most competitive way. These are all imponderables which I think would be very difficult for us to try and put into a simple measurement.
Right. There was also a 1.5 to 2 million people that, Nasscom wants to train in partnership with companies. How is this going to work out?
See, so the world that is emerging for tomorrow, there are two aspects. Traditionally we dealt with a new hire that we had to train. Typically we spend 9 to 12 months before the person becomes revenue generating, even in the last 10 years, 15 years or whatever. But now it is different skill sets, and at the moment we are still grappling with whether it is 9 to 12 months or more or less. It depends on the quality of the raw material that you get, whether their professors understand what they have to be trained on, and whether they come. In addition to that challenge, which is a normal challenge for the industry, we have a workforce of 3.5 million people, and we've said 40 to maybe 45% of those people over the next 3 to 5 years need to be retrained. That is the 1.5 to 2 million number that is coming from. Already 50% of our existing workforce has been trained on newer technologies, but it is the balance 50%. Also, at the moment, I dare say it may be an inch deep, where we have to make it a mile deep in terms of that knowledge. That is where Nasscom is playing a very crucial role in creating a platform that acts as an aggregator of the training ware that allows people to dip on a global basis into a pool to be able to train people on these cutting edge technologies. So I would say there are a lot of moving parts of what all has to be managed. A lot of it is being done by our member companies, and there are good practices that are coming out, and some of those good practices are not in areas where the companies are not willing to share. They are willing to share and learn from each other. There's a lot we at Nasscom are doing. We are working with the National Skill Development Council to see where we can accelerate this movement. So there are a lot happening over the next 3-5 years. There'll be a lot of learning. There'll be a lot of experimentation. Hopefully a lot of what we do will work, but definitely something that we try may or may not work.
Right. Rishad, if you look at the commentary around jobs, layoffs, I know companies, everybody, the industry, everybody's calling it performance-related separations, but is there a better way of handling this? Because it seems to affect the middle management layer the most. Is that, the project manager, the senior project manager level, something that cannot be retrained, reskilled? Are those job losses sort of inevitable, so to speak, going forward?
This is a regular occurrence that happens every year within organizations that go through a performance-based cycle and evaluate employees, and people who are non-performers, which are the bottom 10 typically, don't have a future in the organization or have to go through some major rechange in their and course correct to continue. So there's nothing out of the ordinary as a part of this conversation. There's certainly a need to have new skills, and a lot of the employee base in organizations have that ability to be reskilled. And Raman talked about the efforts that are going on both from a Nasscom perspective as well as within individual organizations that are focusing, like yesterday, on reskilling people. So I think this issue of layoffs and people not having the ability to make the transition is a bit overstated, frankly.
Okay, we hope the employee unions agree with you. But, so just coming to the last part, IT has always been an engine of, job creation for India. It's the biggest private sector employer. Contribution in terms of GDP, urban consumption is so huge. Do you see that continuing? There was mention of startups and new companies in your report, but unfortunately they haven't been able to match up to IT in terms of, job creation. They've also faced a lot of shutdowns in the last year. So do you see IT still continuing to be, the engine of job creation?
Absolutely. And let me tell you why, and let me also tell you why we need to look at this whole issue also a little bit differently. First and foremost, IT is continuing to be a job creator. You saw the numbers that we had put out. It's also a fact that the relationship between revenue growth and employee growth is coming down as a percentage because of increasing automation, increasing new technologies that are becoming available, etc. And this is something which is happening across sectors. IT is by no means unique in that respect. It is happening across other sectors, although arguably it is happening much faster in the IT sector compared to other sectors.
It's more visible.
But the key thing is that technology adoption today is an imperative no matter which sector you are in. And I'm sure even in the media, for example, you would have seen that.
Right.
The implication of that is that the need for technology professionals is no longer confined to the IT sector. So when we are looking at technology services, the need for technology trained professionals, the kind of turnover that the technology brings, then we are now getting limited if we try to look at it only from within the technology sector. Because what we are now looking at, this number of 130 to 150,000, is I am only counting how many people are being hired by the IT industry, by the member companies of Nasscom or by the startups. But we are not counting the people who are being hired in other domain companies and doing the same kind of work which the IT companies are doing. So for example, if we were to take the same analogy of the US, GE today calls itself a software company. Right. But if they were to be a member of Nasscom, I would love them to be, but if they were a member of Nasscom, we would not be counting their revenues as or their employment as IT employment, whereas the fact is that it is. So I think that the continuous and accelerated adoption of technology means that hiring in this segment will grow and will grow much more in the years to come, but may not be only confined to the IT sector. That's the key point.
Right. One meeting that everyone is looking forward to is the one that happens between PM Modi and Trump later this month. Will Nasscom be a key part of this? Because, Commerce Secretary also said that H-1B visa will certainly figure in the talk. So what are you expecting now, sir? Because a few days back, it seemed like, Donald Trump had sort of softened his stance when he spoke to a lot of CEOs of companies such as Microsoft and Apple. What outcomes are you expecting from this meeting?
I think let us step a little away for a moment from the dry rhetoric of H-1B visas, because, somehow, like Rishad was mentioning about the employment, the way the media has overblown it, the H-1B also tends to get overblown as the be-all and end-all of the sector in the US. So let's look a little beyond that. If you look at the IT as a sector, it has been a defining segment of the India-US economic partnership. It has been a very defining feature of the image that India today projects across the world. So if you look at this technology sector and what it has contributed to the US, what it has contributed to India, then it will be clear that while there are obvious benefits for India, which we are all familiar with, there are huge benefits for the US in terms of the kind of efficiency gains that it has brought in among Fortune 500 companies, more than 75% of whom are serviced by the Indian industry. If they are retaining jobs, more than just retaining, if they are actually creating jobs in an era where 50% of the Fortune 100 companies have fallen off the charts in just a decade, if these companies are able to grow and create more jobs in the US economy, it's in no small part due to the kind of services and the kind of efficiency gains that they're able to bring in as they make the transformation to a digital enterprise. That's where the Indian industry plays a big role. So what we would actually like to see is that in this discourse between the heads of the two countries, that the importance of this sector and the importance of continuing to nurture it and do whatever is possible to nurture it is recognized as something which both countries need to work at, and that today it's not only a part of improving the efficiency, productivity and competitiveness of corporate America, but it is also an important part of the innovation that is required. And there also that's a new dimension for this partnership. And it's clear that a lot of innovation in the US comes through foreign workers. This has been brought out by a lot of the statistics. That's what came out very sharply in the recent controversy over some of the restrictions on travel which came out. And I think evidence of a better understanding of this also came up in the roundtable that President Trump had with the leaders of all the CEOs. So again, what I want to say is that this industry is growing employment in India. It's growing employment in the US as well. We are hiring in India, we are hiring in the US. And both are important for the industry to grow. Again, I would not like that an inference should be drawn, which sometimes some of the people in the media are drawing, that, oh, if you're hiring there, then you must be dehiring here. If you're hiring here, then you must be dehiring there. It's not like that at all. It's only when you hire in both areas that the industry can grow. That's the nature of the business. That's the direction in which it has grown.
Before I let three of you go, I want each of you to give me one skill that you think engineers should have today, or maybe graduates who are, just about to pass out need to have. I'm sure that's something they would want to know. I'm going to start with you, sir.
I think that the graduates of today or tomorrow need to be able to look beyond just technology as a tunnel and look at a broader impact that the technology would make, and a whole lot of factors which have to be put to work along with technology to make a transition happen. That breadth of thinking has to be cultivated as a habit, number one, and number two, an attitude of continuous learning, without which, even in the technology sector itself, even in the narrow confines of technology, they will not be able to succeed.
So actually, I was going to say learnability, because, the successful employee of tomorrow must demonstrate a hunger for knowledge and must demonstrate the ability to learn and learn it rapidly. Because the new reality is we are living in a very dynamic environment where things will undergo a change, and the people who will succeed are the people who demonstrate learnability and the hunger to learn.
I would echo with that, but I would also say outside of the core technology, an ability to communicate and an ability to be consultative with a business owner, because more and more technology is engaging very closely with business, and so the ability to communicate with a non-technical person will be very important and very impactful, I think.
Right. On that note, thank you all so much for talking to us.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/etnow.